Alright, welcome back, guys. We're going to do a kind of paranormal theories on different cryptids. It's going to be me, Alan, and Sam. Now, Alan, what's outside of like Sasquatch, which we've talked about a lot, what's another kind of cryptid that really kind of intrigues you?
Well, there's kind of a local one here in Colorado that not a ton of people know about. It's called the Slide Rock Bolter. And basically what it is it goes from mountaintop to mountaintop. And it was a theory that was kind of invented more or less for disappearing hikers and things like that. And more or less what the Slide Rock Bolter does is it slides down the mountain, eats whoever's there, and then slides to the next mountaintop and then awaits the next prey. And it's been a very kind of thinly stretched cryptid, but it's definitely one that's out there and it's kind of growing, at least here in Colorado. I haven't heard anything else about it in any other state or even all the way throughout Colorado for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it even in like the Weird Colorado book.
Yeah.
I mean,
actually, I think that was one of the biggest ones I had seen it in, was the Weird Colorado book.
It's definitely something interesting. I think it's been around since the 1800s, if I remember correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
These stories.
It's really old, but for some reason it just never really took off. And it's still kind of centralized to like mountain communities. Well, with it being a mountain-based cryptid. So it's definitely an interesting one. You know, not one that everybody hears all the time, like Bigfoot.
Yeah. No, it's something, especially I think living in Colorado, having all the mountains, it's really interesting to think of something so big it just takes one like slide and it can go to a whole nother mountain range.
Right, yeah.
Alright, so Sam, what's maybe a cryptid that you're interested in that's not one of the bigger known ones?
There's one about the kind of what they portray as like a Slender-esque type creature that's seen in like was caught on a national forest camera, and it was just like these two tall cylindrical, like really thin, kind of like what looks kind of like ghosts with sheets over, but like has like its own weird uniqueness to it because it was really bright white, but like walked so like weird and cylindrical and didn't really have any arms. It was just like a leg and then like a top to it. And I don't know, there's not too much behind it. There's really just like video and like people's like theories of him. But it's definitely a very interesting cryptid that I came across while researching one day.
Yeah, I've seen the video. I think there's a couple. There's even one that portrays, I think, like a youngling. Yeah. There's one that's like maybe half the size. Yeah, it's going across like a front lawn. No, I mean, those are interesting. Personally, one of mine would definitely have to be the Goat Man. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's one from Kentucky. And me and Colin and my dad had gone looking for it. I mean, I know where the train track is, and a lot of people actually die on the train track because they think it's abandoned and it's not. And so they're up on a 180-foot high train bridge and they get killed. But there's like half a it's pretty much, it's hard to describe, like a man's body with a goat head. And it lives near Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. And it's just something that's really kind of strange. You see it portrayed kind of in movies and such. And it's right over like this group of houses too, where if you go down far enough it says hell, and if you go into it people have never come out. So that whole like area in itself is really intriguing to me. Now, obviously we've done Bigfoot a lot. One we haven't really talked about is like the Loch Ness Monster. What are your guys' like ideas on like Nessie and all the other kind of lake monsters?
As far as Nessie goes, I do think there's something there. Kind of like Bigfoot. Like, I still believe in a Bigfoot. I don't think it's a bear. I really don't. And I'm kind of the same way with Nessie. I do believe there's a logical explanation, just like with Bigfoot. I don't think it's some crazy, mysterious thing. I think it's just something that's evolutionary. It's been set in its ways for so long, and it's worked for so long, that why would it change now? So it's just strange to us because, you know, we haven't had an opportunity to actually come up close, face to face with it. I do believe that, you know, as far as like Loch Ness goes and a lot of the other Irish lochs, I think Loch Ness, as far as Nessie goes, I think Nessie is a different creature from what a lot of other videos that come out of Loch Ness and a lot of the other surrounding lochs in Ireland, just based on some of the general descriptions from farmers and things like that, or passersby that I've seen, or, you know, maybe even caught a video clip here and there. Sure, there's driftwood and pranks and things like that. There's no 100% credibility in anything. But I do think, you know, after kind of weeding through it, that there are two separate kind of either forms or entities. Do I know if it's like male and female? Like maybe it's just something like that. Or if it's just two totally different creatures. I don't know. But that's just kind of something that I've kind of noticed, is that there has seemed to be these two very popular descriptions that are still very different.
Yeah, obviously the plesiosaur is probably the most popular Nessie kind of description, and then there's more of like maybe a fish kind of eel-like creature that can also go on land and it waddles around. Mm-hmm. Sam, do you have anything about, you know, lake monsters as far as that goes? I mean, I know I just read a news story where they were talking about, what was it, New Hampshire, Connecticut, where they have a lake monster. They actually just found a giant skin of an anaconda. So somehow there's just an anaconda just chilling out up there. But, I mean, what's your take on lake monsters?
I mean, you can't not, like, kind of disprove it just because, I mean, like, most bodies of water, we don't really look into it. Like, most lakes, yes, but, like, I don't know, stuff changes to adapt to what's it's being dealt with, and, like, it's definitely very interesting, like, the whole Loch Ness thing. Like, I believe there's creatures out there. Like, recently they found, off the coast of Australia, they saw a shark that was basically like a baby to a kind of pre-adult megalodon. It was like 27 feet long, like a great white shark. So, like, it was straight up, like, basically a small megalodon.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know, we've definitely recently been starting to see lots of larger creatures come up from, like, the depths, and, like, we'll probably see, like, stuff like the Kraken and, like, creatures that are like Leviathans, because Leviathan is basically a massive creature.
Well, and it's interesting talking about the large animals. I saw this thing on bears, about very large grizzly bears in Alaska and things like that, and how people thought that they were just big because they were crossbreeding with polar bears, and then they were just big, you know, based on genetics. Well, a lot of the larger, just the abnormally large grizzly bears that they were finding up there, a lot of the ones that they were either taking samples from and doing DNA and things like that on, they were actually descendants of cave bears. Like, they had cave bear DNA, and it just somewhere along the line got crossed with grizzlies, and, you know, grizzlies taking over, but there's still that cave bear side to it, which was one of the theories on why they're so big. It's just because they still have that cave bear DNA.
Yeah. Cave bears, in the sense, were one of the largest of the bear species. I mean, bigger than the Kodiak.
Yeah.
Are almost the size of a small, like, short-faced bear, too. I mean, those were the two biggest bears. But yeah, I mean, as far as, like, the megalodon goes, I mean, that's an interesting one. I think that theory's been around a while. I mean, you see it in, you know, movies and books, especially in, like, the Meg series by Steve Alton. They talk about how it could be living deep down in the Mariana Trench, or something where they've adapted to the dark abyss and able to feed off squids and sperm whales and stuff like that. Some of the other ones I think that we talk about a lot, at least for us, would be like skinwalkers and what was the tall man was the other one?
Now, a lot of people get a lot of the tall man things mixed up. There's a tall man, a dark man, a thin man. Overall, there's like 5 different ones that all fit like a rough description, and some of them are based on different Native American tribes that are more or less describing the same entity. It's just different tribes saying it differently, more or less. And then you have, like the creepypasta stuff that is just kind of
where they've taken the tall man and made it to the slender man and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of mixture with that one. It's definitely a very old type of I don't know if you'd call it a spirit. I guess it's kind of an evil spirit, more or less, but it's definitely a very old spirit, and it's definitely been around for a very long time, and it's always been described in the same way. So that's one of those that, is it necessarily that is what it is? I don't know, but I do think there's something there, just with, again, how old and how widespread it is. There has to be something to it.
Yeah, and a lot of the Native American things, like you see the Sasquatch and that kind of stuff. Another thing you see in like more of the eastern Native American tribes is like stories of like giants, and giants would build pyramids, and apparently people have back like 1800s they were finding all these fossils, and like there's a big conspiracy that the Smithsonian's hiding all of them and stuff like that. Have you heard about those at all?
I've heard about giant skeletons, but I haven't heard one that the Smithsonian has been hiding them or anything like that. It's definitely interesting to think about it, even when you think about something that we do know about, like the archives, with the Catholic Church. We know they have archives. We know they have a crazy amount of documentation on a lot of crazy things that have happened, but no one gets to go and no one gets to see it. So there's like 3 people that are allowed to go there. The Smithsonian could be the same way, and we would never know.
Yeah. That's something, I think it would be a fun road trip, go down to the Appalachian Mountains and take a look at some of the old pyramids that are down there.
Yeah.
I think the last cryptid we'll kind of talk about before we wrap this up is the chupacabra, which is something I think we've talked about before a while ago, but now I think a lot of people kind of think it's just a dog more than like a space alien, where it actually kind of originally was more like a reptilian alienoid creature.
Right.
And now
2 legs,
yeah,
like 4.
and now it's a 4-legged, more like dog-like creature. What are your guys'? Tell me, Sam, maybe a little bit more about the alien aspect of the chupacabra. Just describe it, maybe.
I don't believe that the chupacabra would be more of like an alien being. I definitely believe that it's more of like a genetically modified creature that like the U.S. government has been experimenting on. Because we definitely have facilities where we experiment on lots of different things, and so
look at Plum Island.
Yeah, Plum Island's a great example. And then after Plum Island, after the incident on Plum Island, they made multiple facilities like throughout the middle of the country and like throughout the country on different spots. And then like look at all the weird random diseases, like the Lyme disease that was named after the city that it was affected in. And then also like other like weird diseases in certain spots of the like world and not really affecting anything else. Like, I don't know, it's either their experiments got out or they released it for some reason to
to see how it would do.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can kind of see that because I think around the same time the reptilianoid chupacabra was being seen, compared to like what we see now and what's described. It was about the same time as like the modern Jersey Devil as well.
I was gonna say it kind of reminds me of the Jersey Devil. It kind of, in the description a little bit and just kind of its overall persona, it does remind me a lot of it. But it, talking about what Sam was just talking about, how maybe it was made by the government and released, that actually kind of reminded me of a funny thing. I think it was New Zealand. They had such a high population of rabbits and they were destroying crops and stuff that they actually started releasing ferrets into the wild, because the ferrets, loved rabbits. They would eat the rabbits, and it kept the rabbit population down. Well, it just exploded and got out of hand, and now they have like an open bag limit over there on ferrets because it's such an issue. It could be a similar situation where we could have had a problem that maybe we didn't even know about, and that's what this was for, was to take care of that problem. And what's interesting about it is just where it's located at.
It's just mainly the south.
Right, yeah, it's
like
in
Texas,
really dry climates, that
like
are...
the bottom part of Arizona, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's not going to have a lot of trouble with climates or like weather.
Yeah.
Where they can kind of control it. Like,
Exactly.
Not really control it. Maybe it's just it can't.
it's
Well,
not going to be
like,
like
it's a
Colorado where it
It's
can get
it's a
super
controlled
cold.
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it won't get super
Well,
cold.
and if you look-
maybe it
yeah.
can't handle like too cold of
Right,
temperatures
yeah.
or something.
But if you look down south too, they also have like a lot of people saying they see like modern like thunderbirds and stuff like that, like terror birds.
I've heard
And
some
that's,
stuff about
yeah,
that.
like down in
But I've heard a lot
Texas
of
and
that.
Arizona.
I've heard a lot of things about that up north towards like Canada and things like
Washington,
that. Too.
yeah.
Washington, yeah. So, but what's interesting, kind of in my mind a little bit about the chupacabra is, especially one of the earlier descriptions of it being kind of reptilian-like, it would make sense that it was in a dry, warm climate, just like snakes and lizards and everything else. Like, we have that kind of stuff here in Colorado where it gets cold, but we definitely don't see the size or the numbers or just kind of the stronghold that you do down in those warmer climates.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting, and maybe we can go out and look at some of these a little bit better. I mean, that's all pretty close, but until next time, signing out. Peace.